So today we are going to continue practicing comparing and contrasting. We compared and contrast two different characters. We're going to continue to compare and contrast settings and events in a story and really just get a feel for how to do this with different parts of books and using evidence to do that. So you are independently going to be doing something with a story called the U Tree today. I'm going to model some thinking of just how to do this with two little stories called The Burning of the Rice Fields and The Hero of Harlem. It says you should have read these before. We are going to read these together. And so as I click on this, there are two very short stories here. And so let's think about how they're the same and different. So The Hero of Harlem, and this is an adaptation of a story. That's a little bit longer and different version. There's many different versions of this. It says, long ago, a boy named Hans lived in a small town in Holland called Harlem. One day, Hans took his little brother out to play to the edge of the town near the dike, kind of like the dam that holds in water. As the boys were playing, the little brother commented, "Look, Hans, the dike has a hole." Hans looked at the hole in the dike and saw a drop of water bubbling slowly through the hole. He knew that all the water needed was a little hole, and soon it would burst through the dike, flooding the whole town. Almost without thinking, Hans stuck his finger into the hole and told his little brother to run to the town and warn the townspeople that there was a hole in the dike. For a long time, Hans felt with his finger in the hole in the dike. His hand began to feel numb, and the cold began to creep up his arm. It seemed as if hours had gone by since his brother left. He stared down the road, straining to see someone, but there was no one. As his ear touched the dike, he thought he heard the voice of the ocean murmuring, "I am the great sea. No one can stand against me. You are only a little boy. Do you think that you can keep me out?" Hans instinctively started to pull his finger from the dike to run before the sea broke through, and it was too late to escape. He thought of the sea bursting through the dike and imagined a great flood spreading far over the land, leaving ruin in its wake. As he thought of this, he gritted his teeth and shoved his finger into the dike tighter than before. At that moment, he heard a shout. In the distance, he saw the townspeople dashing down the road, carrying pickaxes and shovels. "Hold on, we're coming," they shouted. It seemed like only a moment before the crowd was there, when they saw Hans with his finger wedged tightly into the hole in the dike. They gave a robust cheer. When the dike was fixed, they hoisted him up onto their shoulders and carried him to town as a hero. To this day, people still tell the story of Hans, the boy who saved Harlem. So we have Hans here, and we can think of several characteristics of what he's like and really the setting of the story, and we understand that now we're going to take this and compare and contrast it to this story called The Burning of the Rice Fields. So I'm going to read this, and then we'll think about the changes or the differences between these two stories. An old man lived on a mountaintop in Japan. At the base of the mountain was a small village. On one side of this village was the mountain, and on the other side was the sea. There was no room for planting crops at the base of the mountain. The land around the old man's house on the mountaintop, however, was flat and fertile. Because of this, the people who lived in the village planted their rice fields around his house. The old man enjoyed looking down the mountain at the village below, out at the blue sea that spanned the horizon, and over the rice fields growing plentiful around his small house. The old man loved the rice fields. He knew that the fields provided food for all of the villagers. One day, the old man was passing time looking out at the sea. Suddenly, he saw something strange far off where the sea meets the sky. Something like a great cloud was rising, as if the sea was lifting itself into the sky. The old man grabbed a brand from the hearth and ran to the rice fields, where he thrust the burning brand into the ripe, dry rice. The flames ran up the dry stalks, and the entire field was ablaze in an instant. Thick, black smoke billowed into the sky. The villagers below saw the smoke and knew that their rice fields were on fire. Men, women, and children climbed the mountain as fast as they could to save the rice. No one stayed behind. When they came up to the mountaintop, they saw the flaming fields of rice. They cried, "Who has done this? How did this happen?" "I set the fire," the old man said solemnly. The villagers gathered fiercely around the old man and demanded to know why he had burned their fields. The old man turned and pointed to the sea. The calm blue sea had been replaced by a mighty wall of water that was rolling toward the land. The villagers fell silent at the terrible sight. As they watched, the wall of water rolled over the land, passed over the place where their village had been, and broke with an awful crash against the mountainside. Water covered all of the land at the base of the mountain, and the village was destroyed. But all of the people were safe. When they realized that the old man had saved them from the tsunami, they praised and honored him for his quick thinking and bravery. Okay, so we have this where the old man knew he needed to get these villagers to safety up the mountain, but he didn't have time, so he actually set fire to the fields and the crops so that the townspeople would see this and run to go put it out, and everybody was saved. And so you have some similarities, some differences between this young boy named Hans and this older man that lived in Japan. So what I want you to do is pause for a moment and think, okay, how are these two stories similar? How are they different? How are the characters similar? How are they different? So go ahead and pause it now and think about that. All right, so you have these two characters. You have a different setting. You have a story that's similar in their plot, but there's still some differences. And so what I can do here is show you just some examples. If you think, okay, how are they similar? How are they different? You could add to this. This is not everything, certainly. This is just the beginning of some ideas. Hans, you can see, lived in a small town in Holland. The old man lived on a mountaintop in Japan, so the settings are different there. Of course, the boy is young, the older man is older. But if you think about the similarities, both of them were brave. They both saw danger coming and had to respond quickly. They had to think fast and figure out what to do. And their actions saved the lives of many people. You can add to this. Also in the story, both groups of people praised and celebrated the actions of the boy and the actions of the young man to save them. Okay? You have this where both of these involved water that were really the kind of what was causing the problem here in the end. We talk about the antagonist or the evil character, the one that's the villain. In this case, it was the water for both of the stories. All right, so the next step here, what we're going to do is think about this next story, the yew tree. So I'm going to read this with you quickly, and it's a story. Once again, they cut it off, so this is just a short portion of the story that's been adapted. It says, long ago in Scotland, Finlay, a 12-year-old boy with messy red hair, was walking along the river's edge. Finlay was a good boy with a good heart, but he had had a hard life and little good fortune. As an orphan, Finley had lived with many different uncles and aunts, none of whom were really welcomed him, and he never stayed long in one place. Finley's misfortune was about to change. As Finley walked by the river's edge on this particular day, he slipped on a mossy rock and fell headlong into the frigid water. He landed with a splash, hitting his head on a rock. Finley's mind went blank as the swift current carried him away. Finley woke to a small lamb licking his face. He pushed away the lamb, sat up, and rubbed his throbbing head. Finley looked around the small room and tried to figure out where he was, but he had never seen the green, sheep-covered hills that surrounded the cottage that he was in. "Hello, lad," a warm, booming voice said. "You should be careful, for your head has a large bump as well as a cut. When I found you, you were soaked from head to toe, lying in a pile of mossy wood on the riverbank." "I don't really remember what happened. Where am I and who are you?" "I am a shepherd called Murchid is really how you pronounce it. Murchid. Who are you?" "I am called Finley." "Well, perhaps you would like a nice bowl of mutton stew. I am starving, and so I will accept your offer of stew, good sir." Finley ate as if he had not eaten for days. When he was finished, he pushed away the bowl. Murchid looked outside and began to speak. "It will be dark soon. You should spend the night here. My home is small, but it has served me well for many years." "Thank you for everything," Finley said, "but I must be home before it gets dark. My uncle will be furious if I'm late." "Thank you again." He stood up and hastily headed out the door. So there's more to this story, but what you're going to do is use this, and you'll have an available version of this for you to read if you need to. But what you're going to do is think about the characters, Finley and Murchid. I know you don't know them very well, but there's a little bit of details about both and some things you can infer about their character and what they're like as people. So how are they like? How are they different? And use specific details from the text. So you're going to actually use the text in the assignment. Okay, you're going to contrast also the next question that you're going to type up and answer is contrasting Finley's home life, what it's like at home for Finley, with Murchid's home life. Use details from the story. So what was it like where Finley was living, and what was it like his home compared to what it was like with Murchid? So you're going to complete this assignment. There's a link to the U-Tree. Then read for 30 minutes, 2 steps in school, 2 steps at home tonight for homework. And so also fill out your reading step log, 4 steps total. Remember, I am going to next week start to look at your reading step logs with you and just do a little bit of conferencing with you. So today, when you go to It's Learning, the assignment for ELA will be right here. And you click on this, and with the U-Tree, they'll give you the copy of the text. I want you to go back and just kind of skim through it and use this. And there's the text, and then you're actually, when you hit answer assignment here, you're just going to type up the answers to these 3 quick questions. Okay? Can't wait to see your responses, and I will see you guys soon.